Hey, why do you try to hide your talent like that? Her piercing gaze held mine firmly. You're really talented, aren't you? Why pretend to be just an ordinary person? It's such a waste to hide your gifts. She probably meant well when she said that. But her words touched a raw nerve, bringing up my traumatic memories. Anger surged, and I abruptly stood up. What do you mean it's a waste? Are you trying to use me too? I've had enough of being treated that way. I became aware of the attention I was drawing from those around, but it was too late. She diverted her eyes from mine and muttered, "Sorry. My name is Sam. I currently work as an administrative assistant at a law firm. The firm is of a decent size, renting out the entire first floor of a building. Several lawyers and staff members work there. While most assistants are dedicated to specific lawyers, I didn't have one assigned to me. Being at the very bottom of the totem pole and not particularly skilled, I handled various chores daily. Filing and organizing documents, restocking office supplies. I'm taking care of tasks that aren't directly related to legal work, day in and day out. I think the people at the office are generally good folks. Given their profession, many of them have a strong sense of justice and are hard-working. They are sociable and often go out for meals or drinks together. While I don't join them much, I believe there's nothing wrong with building bonds that way. I'm not much of a drinker, and I don't like bustling places, so I often opt out. Sometimes, I do wonder if I'm even noticed by my colleagues. I'm, admittedly, not very noticeable. Taxis seldom stop for me, and there were instances when automatic doors wouldn't recognize me. But as long as I'm not dragged into unnecessary issues, I reckon it's a blessing. My goal is to live my life quietly, without drawing attention. I've learned that being in the spotlight often leads to unwanted trouble. Peace and quiet, that's my life motto. One day, our firm decided to bring in a lawyer from another firm. She was reputed to be exceptionally talented, having won numerous difficult cases. You aren't assigned to anyone, are you? Would you mind assisting Catherine with her tasks? The chief said so, and gave me a light pat on the shoulder. I could feel the eyes of my co-workers on me. While some looked envious, the attention was more painful than flattering to me. My name is Catherine Smith. Pleased to meet you. She, with her short, stylish hair, exuded a cheerful energy. Her sleek black pantsuit accentuated her tall frame, making her look more cool than most men I knew. You must be Sam. Nice to meet you. Her hand, reaching out for a handshake, was considerably smaller than mine, reminding me that, after all, she's a woman. Catherine lived up to her reputation and proved to be outstanding. Handling multiple projects at once, she worked like a demon. She had an incredibly quick mind and handled tasks with immense speed. She had a great reputation in the office. In less than 3 days, she seemed to match everyone's faces with their names and quickly fit right in. Working with her was an honor, but I felt a little intimidated. Catherine was very skilled and fast-paced in her work. As a result, I was expected to keep up with her speed. Working silently by her standout presence was indeed a challenging task. Sam, I need the documents for yesterday's case. I have them right here. Also, I've indexed and organized similar past cases by importance and relevance. Great. Did I ask for that? I've never had someone anticipate my needs so accurately. It makes things easier. Oh, well, sorry for taking the initiative. Why are you apologizing? I'm complimenting you. Catherine said with a hearty laugh. Let's get to work. Sam, can you compile the documents for this case next? Also, we have a client meeting at 4 p.m., so please attend and take notes, then. Wait, hold on a second. We don't have time to wait. Let's get going. Catherine smiled brightly and stacked several files in front of me. The pile was so high it seemed like it would topple over at any moment. And at Catherine's desk, an even taller tower of files awaited her, which she was devouring with intense focus. Seeing her like that, I truly believed she was a work demon. "Sam, I'm going on a business trip." Catherine, who was supposed to meet the chief, suddenly burst out of the office saying that. Caught off guard, I watched as she efficiently packed her things. "Right now?" "Yes." The chief asked me. "I'll be in Chicago overnight. I'm taking over a client from the chief, and I've also been invited to a company's founding party, so get ready for that too." "A party? I've never been to one of those." "Just relax. Think of it as an opportunity to enjoy some good food. You need to get used to these kinds of events, right? Honestly, I'm not comfortable in glamorous settings. It feels like I don't belong." I wasn't thrilled, but it's part of the job. That's what I told myself as I reluctantly nodded. The client Catherine took over from the chief was the legal consultant of a major hotel company. The chief is a great lawyer, but often talks about wanting to retire soon, so it seems he's passing his work to Catherine and other lawyers in the firm. The current hotel CEO is the third generation, having recently taken over. Our chief had a close relationship with the previous CEO, so it probably made sense for the transition to happen now. The meeting went smoothly, and then it was time for the evening party. It was held in a fairly large hotel with a spacious banquet hall, and there were many attendees. Looks like there are a lot of local dignitaries and executives from nearby companies. Yes, there are so many people. Even though it's just started, I was already feeling overwhelmed by the people. The dolled-up folks were shining too brightly for my eyes. It's too bright of a world for a guy like me who prefers to stay in the shadows. Catherine, in a black outfit paired with bold accessories, blended seamlessly into the glamorous environment. As for me, I chose a decent tie and pocket square, but my suit was pretty much my usual. I tried to pick something that wouldn't make me stand out, but I was sweating bullets, worrying I'd stick out like a sore thumb. "Miss Smith, thank you so much for coming today." The hotel CEO came over to greet us. "Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor. There's food over there, so please enjoy at your leisure." With that, the CEO went to greet other attendees. I hear it's crucial to make the rounds and greet everyone at these events. Is this the social elite? A world I'm sure I'm not a part of. While I was lost in thought, several men approached Catherine. "Are you the attorney, Miss Smith? I've heard so much about you." An older gentleman greeted her with a warm smile. Catherine, on the other hand, responded with a smile but seemed not to recognize him. I whispered to her, "That's the executive VP of the Miller Group. The chief has been their consultant." Catherine gave a slight nod and began conversing with the executive VP. "We've heard great things about the Miller Group's new venture." "Oh, you have? That's good to hear. Yes, it's the result of many years of work." The executive VP enthusiastically promoted his company, and Catherine smiled and nodded in response. Seeing her at the center of attention, people gathered around to join the conversation. Watching her handle the crowd, I couldn't help but be impressed. Wanting a break from the bustling event, I decided to step out and head to the restroom. Stepping out of the hall, the quietness felt like a different world, a welcome respite from the overwhelming crowd. The nearest restroom was occupied, so I headed further down the hall. On my way back, I noticed a little girl, maybe about to start elementary school, sitting on a bench, crying. Looking around, there didn't seem to be any parents nearby. No hotel staff inside either. I couldn't just leave her there, so I approached her. "Are you okay?" I squatted down to be at eye level with the crying girl. She looked surprised and shook her head, tears still streaming. I wondered if she might not understand English. I then asked in Spanish. But she still shook her head. Not Spanish either. Let me try some other languages." I decided to address her in every language I knew. French, Italian, and then German. She seemed to react slightly to the German, so I asked slowly, "Did you get separated from your parents?" She nodded. I remembered that there were visitors from Germany attending the party. They were old friends of the hotel's owner. If I could get her back to the event, the staff would likely find her parents. I'm attending the party too. Would you like to come with me? She gave a small nod and took my hand. Nicole, oh, thank goodness. Upon returning, her parents rushed over and embraced her. Not wanting to interrupt their reunion, I quietly stepped away. Out of nowhere, Catherine appeared by my side with a cheeky grin. Not bad, Sam. Just happened to be there. Oh, really? Catherine looked like she wanted to say something more, but I pretended not to notice and stood behind her. I could have another drink. After the party ended, Catherine expressed a desire to have a few more drinks, so we decided to go to a bar. Indeed, with all the formalities at the party, it felt like we hadn't had enough to eat or drink. I stepped into a local tavern near the train station and took a large swig of beer, finally feeling a bit relaxed. With beer, we ordered a mix of dishes, and soon our bellies were comfortably full. Catherine, her cheeks flushed a little, leaned towards me and asked, Sam, can you speak German? Huck, oh yes, a bit. That's impressive. Do you help with international cases? Well, I don't really have that capability. That's not true. Having worked with you, I've noticed your great memory and judgment. Your knowledge about law is solid, and you're efficient and accurate in your administrative skills. Plus, you're fluent in foreign languages. I can't understand why someone like you is overlooked like this. Her voice grew louder, probably due to her excitement. I didn't want to draw attention. I disliked it. Just as I thought that, she added, Why do you always hide your talents? Her intense gaze met mine. You're truly skilled, aren't you? Why pretend to be average? It's such a waste with all that talent. She probably meant well, but her words dredged up my trauma. Heat rushed to my head, and I abruptly stood up. What do you mean by waste? Are you trying to use me too? I've had enough of that. Realizing I was the center of attention, I wished I could take it back. Catherine averted her gaze, murmuring, I'm sorry. After that, Catherine and I barely spoke as we left the tavern. The next morning, we boarded a train back to the office. There was an awkward silence. While lost in my thoughts, Catherine suddenly bowed her head and said, I'm sorry, Sam. I spoke without thinking last night. Everyone has their reasons, and I shouldn't have pushed my views on you. I overreacted too. There were some past incidents. Huh? Catherine looked at me intently, tilting her head slightly. I wished I could be as strong as her. Maybe then, I wouldn't be so affected. Being strong might help me move past things. Considering that, maybe it's not a bad idea to share my past. I was what you'd call gifted. Once I learned something, I'd never forget. In fact, I'd never forget anything I saw. That memory was my special talent. As a kid, I loved learning, and I'd read numerous thick encyclopedias even before elementary school. Everyone called me a little professor. It was fine when I was little, but as I grew older, the gap between me and my friends became evident. School was too easy and boring for me. Being taught the same thing over and over was excruciating. I just read books during classes. I was often scolded by teachers and started to resent school. My parents understood and supported me, which I believe is the reason I'm able to lead a normal life today. Otherwise, I might still be shutting myself in. The turning point was during college applications. Not finding any domestic universities appealing, I decided to study abroad. I loved studying. That's why I wanted to dive into an entirely new world. I went to Oxford University. With students from all around the world, I met many unique individuals and no longer felt out of place. I made friends from various countries and got along well with other students from US. For the first time in my life, I was enjoying my student life. But just before graduation, that feeling was betrayed. A friend I trusted plagiarized my thesis. No matter how much I argued, it was never proven that the thesis was mine, and everyone sided with him. He was the kind of guy who was the center of attention, trusted by classmates and faculty alike, and no one doubted him. People just assumed I was the liar, and friends I thought I had all drifted away. I was devastated but managed to graduate. I failed both the American bar exam and the British one. The only job I found was as a clerk at this law firm. It seems I can't build good relationships. I always mess it up. People drift away just because I have a slightly better memory or grades. I don't really get how others feel. I confided. Catherine listened to me intently. She nodded many times, closed her eyes as if deep in thought, and then began speaking decisively. But Sam, you've always been a great help to me. Just like that little girl yesterday who you helped. Didn't your skills save the day? Isn't that proof that you have amazing abilities and use them right? At least, I value you. I wish you'd have more confidence. Her words were kind and powerful. But all I could do was nod in response. Sometime after our trip to Chicago, Catherine got a tough case. The case was about defending someone wrongfully accused of harassment. Everyone was sure it was a losing battle. You don't have to take this on, the chief told Catherine, but she shook her head. Sometimes, I think lawyers forget that for the average person, seeking legal advice is a big deal. I can't let down someone who had the courage to come to me for help. This isn't about winning or losing. His life is on the line. I'll give it my all. The chief gave her a smile and nodded. She was a woman with a strong sense of justice and compassion, always thinking of her clients and feeling for them. The chief probably expected her to take the case. He let her handle it without any further objections. The client was John, a man in his 30s. He'd recently been promoted to manager and now had a team under him. One of them accused him of harassment. She was taken to an empty meeting room and pressured into a relationship. When she refused, she claimed she was overloaded with work, and when she couldn't handle it, she was verbally abused. There's no recording of the verbal abuse, and the workload seems to be appropriate from what I can see. The problem is the claim that she was pressured into a relationship. There's no way to prove it happened since nobody saw it, but there's also no way to prove it didn't happen. Apparently, she's been diagnosed with stress-related adjustment disorder by a doctor and is currently on leave. If it's linked to work, it could be tricky. Yeah, John seems to be a friendly guy who doesn't make enemies easily. He recently had a baby, and there seems to be no issues in his personal life. Many co-workers seem to be defending John. I wonder why she took such an aggressive step like suing. Does she have some crucial evidence? Or perhaps someone's pulling the strings behind the scenes? Catherine paused to think for a moment, then suddenly stood up. Sam, we're going on an investigation. What? You're going on an investigation, Catherine? Of course, let's go, Sam. Normally, attorneys don't conduct investigations themselves. They typically have dedicated investigators in their firm or hire outside help. But Catherine was determined to take matters into her own hands. Hurriedly following her brisk stride, they soon arrived at the large building where John worked. It's a big corporate building. Yes, it seems their business has been booming lately. Lots of people coming and going. Let's go inside. Wait, we're going in. Of course. At the reception, after showing our credentials, we were promptly handed over to John. He appeared, looking a bit flustered. Catherine, what's going on? Just wanted to look into a few things. Is that okay? Yeah, sure, but... No sooner did she wait for a reply than she briskly started walking. After briefly inquiring about the office layout and nature of the work, she headed to the meeting room where the alleged harassment occurred. The room on the second floor is usually locked, and unlocked only when in use. 2 long tables lined up with 6 chairs. There's one whiteboard. Aside from that, it's a simple room with a bookshelf against one wall filled with organized files. The late afternoon sun was shining through the window. Feeling it was a bit too bright, I tried to lower the blinds, but they seemed to be caught on something and wouldn't come down. Maybe it's broken. Well, if it's not used often, I guess it's not high on the repair priority list. Catherine's attention quickly shifted elsewhere. Not much new information here, I observed. Yeah, John seemed like a typical nice boss. Doesn't seem like the type to harbor resentment. We need to dig deeper, Catherine mused, tapping her chin thoughtfully. As I looked away from her deep in thought, my eyes met those of a tall man in a suit. A liar's badge adorned his chest, and it was immediately evident that everything he wore was high-end. "You're Sam, right?" he asked with surprise in his voice. It was someone I never wanted to see again. Avoiding his gaze, I looked down, but my reaction confirmed my identity to him. He smirked, sizing me up from head to toe. Well, you haven't changed a bit, have you? So you failed the bar exam, huh? No use being a genius if you hit rock bottom. Guess being a lawyer wasn't in the cards for you. Just goes to show, no matter how much knowledge you have, if you lack character, you're no good. Feeling humiliated by his words, I couldn't bring myself to look up. Stepping in front of me protectively was Catherine. "Excuse me, there are things you can and can't say, even to acquaintances. He's my assistant. I won't tolerate anyone belittling him." Taken aback by Catherine's sudden intervention, the man quickly recovered. Still smirking, he glanced at me condescendingly. "Oh, so you're still in the legal world. Tougher than I thought." Without responding, I continued to avoid his gaze. He then addressed Catherine. "You're Catherine, the lawyer, right? I'm also a lawyer. My name is Robert. I presume we'll be facing off in court soon. Nice to meet you." "What do you mean? I'm the attorney representing the plaintiff in this harassment lawsuit against this company," Robert stated before offering a curt bow and leaving. What a sleazebag. His name was Robert, right? You know him. Yes. Do you remember when I told you about college? He's the guy, the one who betrayed me. A memory I'd never forget. He stole my thesis and took everything from me. I showed him my paper because I trusted him. Instead of feeling guilty, he laughed and called me foolish for being so naive. I've heard rumors about a lawyer who'd do anything for money. One who'd stoop to any low to win. I think his name was Robert. Sounds like something he'd do. Let's uncover the truth, Sam. Something's fishy about this case. Catherine's eyes were fixed intently on what lay ahead. Regarding John's wife's family home. Jess, her father runs a company. They're quite well off, or so I heard. How's John's wife now? She's been shaken by the whole ordeal and is staying with her folks. John mentioned that her father is pretty steamed about what's gone down and is pushing for a divorce. That figures. Harassment is a no-go. I'd feel outright betrayed if my daughter's partner pulled something of that sort. As we carried on with the investigation, it turned out that John's wife comes from a moneyed background. It didn't strike me as pertinent at first, but as I pieced things together, something didn't jive. The plaintiff had the lowdown on John's in-laws despite John keeping mum about it at work. They yacked about it over drinks once, raised a red flag. Thinking they can milk the in-laws for a hefty settlement, maybe, could be. Plus, it came to light that Robert and the plaintiff are old acquaintances. There's chatter about them being spotted together. The picture's getting clearer. Looks like Robert might have egged the plaintiff on. Now it boils down to nailing down the proof that John's clean. Catherine sighed, perusing the files we'd gathered. The room where the alleged impropriety went down was reserved in John's name, all right. Everything was copacetic on that front. John claimed he was just there solo, sorting out some paperwork, but with it being a private room and all, there wasn't any way to substantiate his alibi. Testimonies were consistent about the plaintiff being AWOL from her desk at the time. Proving John's innocence with things stacked like this was going to be an uphill battle. Then, out of nowhere, a mental snapshot hit me. The scene inside that meeting room I checked out. Files stacked to the gills and bookshelves, the window catching the tail end of the sunset, and right, the blinds were out of order. What was outside the window? A pay-to-park lot. A couple of high-end cars were parked. And right there at the edge of the property, security cameras. Huh? Catherine caught my offhand remark. I got a gander at the lot next to the meeting room, noticed a few fancy cars, thought it was odd. Then I clocked a security cam in the corner. They might have kept the footage. That's some recall. Let's hoof it over there and take a gander. Hustling, Catherine lashed onto my hand, and we dashed off. We got in touch with the head honcho of the parking premises and got a look at the camera footage. And there it was, as clear as day. John, parked by the window, working solo for the longest time. We've struck pay dirt on proving he's innocent. With that, Catherine gave me a reassuring tap on the back. It was the first time I felt my memory had truly served someone. Court day. I was waiting in the office for Catherine's return. Clerks can't go to the court, even if they are direct subordinates. We prepared with all the materials we had, but anxiety lingered until the results came out. I'm back now. Hearing a cheerful voice, I turned to see Catherine had returned. Her expression seemed bright, but how did it really go? Just as I pondered this, our eyes met. Catherine gave me a full-blown smile and a triumphant thumbs up. I couldn't help but smile, lowering my head in gratitude. It's all thanks to Sam, thanks to his research and materials. We won. He's really outstanding. That evening at the bar, Catherine cheerfully repeated this several times. Others chuckled and nodded in agreement. Sam is pretty quiet, isn't he? Soft-spoken and always seems to be working diligently by himself, said Bob, a young attorney, pouring more beer into Catherine's glass. He seemed to have a significant crush on Catherine and had strategically taken the seat next to her. But didn't Sam always do things unnoticed by others? If Catherine exclusively gets him, the copy paper won't be replenished, supplies will suddenly be missing, and there won't be enough coffee for the guests. You only realize his value once he's gone, says the youngest member of the office, Amy, as she sips her wine. She can drink surprisingly well, Thite the lightweight. No, he hasn't left. I know it's hard to invite Sam because he doesn't talk to others much, but I'm glad we can have a drink like this. Do you like wine or would you prefer bourbon? Office clerk, Jessica, said as she kept offering more drinks. Even though they had always worked together, suddenly the distance between them seemed to have closed, and it felt strangely warm. However, it wasn't unpleasant. In fact, it was a welcome feeling. The after-party is at the bar, exclaimed Bob cheerfully, leading the way as several others followed. I watched from the back. Then, the chief approached me. Sam, you've worked hard. I've heard from Catherine about your outstanding contributions. The chief's voice was ever so gentle. This chief is a real-life hero and attorney who stands by their clients, upholding justice. Many employees were drawn to the firm because of such a chief. Catherine's pretty dedicated, isn't she? I believe you've been influenced by her. Yes, Catherine is incredible. She never gives up and always seeks the truth. She's always on the client's side. I'm truly inspired by her. I see. I'm glad I paired you with Catherine. You're an amazing person, but you always seem to have low self-esteem. The director knows about my setbacks. He's seen my resume when I was hired, so he knows my background too. I have been upfront during the interview, telling him I felt incapable. Why did he hire me despite that? The chief's understanding might be deeper than the ocean. Chief, I have something to discuss with you. What is it? I want to take the bar exam again. I really want to stand up for the underprivileged. I want to become a lawyer like Catherine. All right. Give it your best shot. You have my full support. Thank you. I felt the emotional scars from my college days healing. I'm aware that I'm different from others. It's been a source of pain before, but now I've come to accept it as part of my unique personality. I've realized that it's best to use the skills and abilities I possess rather than hide them. A few years later, I still work at the same office. The only difference is that now I wear an attorney's badge. I may be far from being as great as Catherine or the chief, but I'm determined to always be there for my clients. My life, which I had almost given up on after a setback, got back on track. I believe my experiences will serve me well in my future endeavors. It makes me realize that nothing in life is truly in vain.